This is the Realty Classroom Podcast, episode number 135. How to push your 10-year goals into only 6 months. Are you a real estate agent with an entrepreneurial spirit who wants to turn your job into a business without sacrificing your lifestyle, but you can't seem to find the right plan to help you get there? Well, then, hey, you are definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of the Realty Classroom and the host of this podcast. And to help you take immediate action to get started in the right direction, I've created a free strategic plan for you, and it's waiting over at freeagentgift.com. If you don't do anything else, get over to freeagentgift.com and download the one-page infographic that outlines how this business really works, and that'll help you get started. All right, how to push your 10-year goals into 6 months. Is he nuts? Has he lost it? Nope. Right before this podcast and thinking about us as the biggest problem in the growth of our business from the last episode, I see this quote from Elon Musk. And it comes up on Instagram, and from time to time, trying to game the algorithm on Instagram to show me only what I want to program my mind to think about. There he is, and he pops up and he challenges this. And his premise really was, in the quote, is that why not? Right? I mean, there are a lot of people out there that are promoting this concept of go all in and this 10X concept and really pushing yourself. And I thought it was appropriate all of a sudden because what I believe happens to the brain when you try to rush this goal. First of all, I do believe in the written goal. So let me just say, in the first point here is just a reminder. In the last episode, we defined you as the biggest problem. And that really starts with what you believe to be true. Meaning, if you're the problem, what that means is that there's a way that the business works, but it's the way that you think about it is problematic. And I'm talking to all of us, me. Every week when I do these podcasts, I'm trying to push myself beyond the limitations of the way that I see the world. And so I'm recognizing how we become the problem as it relates to our own growth. And then we look at someone like Musk and all of these people that in our business that have grown these big businesses. And we say, well, they were lucky. They were born, here or there. And we make all these excuses. It's ridiculous, right? It's just ridiculous. Those people just thought differently about things, and then they became more resourceful. I think that's the big, powerful word here that is really underlying how do you condense any goal into a shorter period of time. Just for the framework, I'll steal the Musk quote about going 10 years to 6 months, because to a lot of us it seems absurd, right? So what I would say is, I really, really want you to think about the way that you see this business is the limiting factor. But let's go back to the goal setting for a second, right? You really do need to write down some goals, because even it was Aristotle that even stated that we are teleological or goal-seeking organisms. So even if we begin to study how the business is working, and you're listening to this podcast and you go to Free Agent Gift and you download, this little manual one-page idea or concept of how the business works, you still have to say what you're going to do about that, what financial goals that you have. I mean, clearly, unless you're an independently wealthy person and you're starting as an agent because you're bored and want to do something else, or you're already successful and you're trying to learn it, you need goals that are financial goals. Why? Because the operational mechanisms that you build to sell more properties with or without people are going to achieve some sort of a financial benchmark where you can determine, was I successful? I set out to sell $100,000 GCI before splits with my company. I set out to grow that into a multi-person company that does $1 million, and I need to figure out how to do that. Those goals are helpful because they're up and out there somewhere, and they force you to be resourceful. But then there's that problem with this thermostatic approach to everything that we do. We say, well, I could never do beyond this. And the people that do that are this sort of persona. See, that's where all that limited thinking comes in. And even those of you that are aggressive, by the way, let me just say this about top producers, because I coach top producers and have for a long time. And that's how I birthed the growth of my business, which continues to grow beyond me. It's amazing how even what your perception, let's say you're new and you look at the top producer doing 250,000 in GCI. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. How do they even do that? Well, those are mini budding businesses, but they get trapped in this concept, this weird concept of team. And even those people are very limited in their thinking. They think the next latest lead gen platform or one idea about videos is the formation of a business. And it's so far from the truth, it's actually sad to watch when you can't get through to somebody like that. I've coached a lot of them, and I just watched them year after year after year just bang their head against this self-imposed ceiling because they stopped studying the way the business works. I know, because when I challenge them, people I've known a long time, they either run away or they look like a deer in the headlights. It's because we just won't continue to push ourselves as to what's possible, because our mindset says it's not, when the truth is it is. I mean, if you look to some of the great starters of business in the real estate industry, Caldwell and Banker, right? I mean, those two guys, Keller Williams, Gary to one extent, all of these great entrepreneurs, they just looked at the business differently. And of course, they jammed success into a much smaller time frame. Think about that. If you go look at when somebody's a contemporary in this business started and you started and all of a sudden they've achieved more, why? Why? Primarily because they thought differently. They took bigger risks. They found more resources. That's why. Okay. So the second point here is, how can you set a 10-year goal if you don't even take any time to study how the business works? Now, if you're listening to this podcast, you're definitely studying by default how the business works, because that's what this is all about. We're obsessed with that at the Realty Classroom at its highest level. And then we come here and we share it with anybody who's willing to listen. And then we go to freeagentgift.com and we give you away a basic framework for how the agent business works. And see, you can't just get down and dirty and get into the tactics. A tactic is what? Running an open house, talking to your sphere of influence through social media, whatever it might be. Those are just pieces and tactics that are part of a business. But you need to just get up above it and say, well, how does the agent business really work? And how does it grow into agency? Even if you're scared of having your own agency, or worse and more dangerous, you're not going to go do an agency, but you're going to do a team. You better understand how the business works. And in general, how does a business work? I mean, the most basic thing that most agents never realize is A minus B equals C. How much revenue you bring in minus the expenses equals the profit. And you want to run up and keep grabbing the trophies off the stage for gross commission income, but your spending is so close to that number. It's crazy, scary. How many top producers are running on razor thin margins, whereas some folks that are just plodding along are far more profitable. That's an example of how a business actually works. And good news for all of us, it's not rocket science. So that point is, you're not going to set a 10-year growth to go grow after something without a basic understanding of business, right? So you have to just study that. If you studied a basic understanding of an income statement, if you went over to freeagentgift.com and you got a basic understanding of the operations of a small business inside of real estate, using Michael Gerber's formulas, how I built that, you have to be a visionary like the owner. You have to be a manager like any successful business to manage that margin. And you have to be good at the technical work, like selling a house to a buyer, like selling a listing for a seller. Okay, so there were 3 levels there operationally, and then the basics of the scorecard: income minus expenses equals profit or loss. Simple. But if you don't take any time to study that, shame on you. What are you doing? Even if you sell 3 houses a year, that's a mini business, especially for your household. If it's extra income, part-time income, it's a mini business. So you have to study that. Now, once you have those basic business facts in front of you, you can get up above the business, even if it's half a year, like every 6 months, once a year, even if it's 12 months. How did I do? And what could I have done to grow that business? And what would be an awesome goal for me to achieve? And then you just base it in reality. You don't make up some goofy, crazy number. You just look around you in the MLS that you operate within. Are there successful people that do $250,000 and try to turn a profit? Why not look at what they do? Why not ask yourself, do they have websites that are different from mine? Do they have people? Do they leverage people differently than me? What do they do differently? How do they run their business? Just be observant of what goes on around you and stop talking yourself out of it. Because even if you pick up some tips to run your 3-deal-a-year business, 6-deal-a-year business, 12-deal-a-year business, 24, and on it goes, there are still fundamentals that you're trying to learn so that you can accelerate it. See, if you could look at a business like my book of business and you could study me and you could see, well, how the heck does he have all of these podcasts and these businesses? Because every year I work on it and I look outwards and I say, how does the business work? Why? And all of a sudden there's these crazy, stupid, simple epiphanies. Why don't we make more outbound calls to people? Duh. Why are we waiting for the business to come to us? The minute we do that, we can target listings at or above the median price. We can get into relationships. We can serve those people. It becomes a very logical way that we are accelerating towards those 10-year goals and getting there faster. Now it's about recruiting and people. If I've learned that about my business, why can't I hire agents and teach them the basics of what I know and accelerate them? Now the company accelerates. See what I mean? It's just a way of thinking. It's not scary, by the way, either. It's not at all. Because the more you study how something works, the irony is how much simpler it appears to you. And you have these strange moments where you're like, what was I thinking? How did I complicate it in my head? You can see that with anybody that overthinks anything. It's just this fear-based thing, and we want to believe it's so complicated and scary when the truth is most of the successful people in business are wildly simple and logical in their approach. Some of the most successful people I've ever seen are not the smartest people I've ever met. You hear what I just said? Some of the most successful people I've ever seen in business and all kinds of business, especially real estate, are not by any stretch the smartest academic people I've ever met. So study that. Understand that. Understand that people that, like Elon Musk, I'm not going to say that Elon's not, to a large extent, brilliant in some ways, but it's his thinking. It's his resourcefulness. It's his fearlessness to just push the envelope and say, why not? Because when you say why not, all of a sudden you go into this level or this place where you're looking at the resources. Is somebody smarter than you? You almost become like an orchestra leader. And that's what happens when you're shrinking this goal. You will not go it alone. That's the point. You definitely won't shrink your 10-year goal and get it in 6 months without the help of other people and systems. Those are the two things that I have learned offer the most leverage. And I'll argue it's the systems first. If I have a systematic way of thinking bigger, then I can find the people who are resourceful enough to orchestrate a better effort, right? That's the key. Ooh, man, I wish I learned that earlier, but it takes some time. I understand, but I'm sharing it with you now. The third point here is once you know how the business works, there's no real reason success should take so long. Let me explain this, okay? So I've always wanted to own an agency. And the way that I perceived you build that agency as a self-financed organization. In other words, I'm not going to go borrow money from the bank. I could. And maybe as I get bigger, maybe I would if I could see a reason that that money was the resource to shrink the time frame within which I achieved the goal. I'll bite, okay? However, what I've understood is that listings, this is going to be crazy obvious to you when I say this, listings drive the business. And wherever I've chosen geographically to do business, the median and above price is a longer profit than the median and below. Duh, right? Pretty logical, right? If you look at the median number in Boston or Cape Cod, my primary markets, if I will learn to secure listings first, not buyers. Here you go, all you top producers running down the hill on a tactic. Well, it's so easy to get buyers. I just get buyers and I don't like sellers. Right? It's a listings business. It's a listings acquisition business. And if I can acquire more listings at the higher profit margin end, and I'm just talking from the median and up, and I can focus on that. Doesn't mean I wouldn't do some to the left, but if I can focus on how the business works at its best and move in that direction, what's stopping me from getting listings is the only question I need to ask. Then the resources appear obvious. Well, I need to have a better website that displays listings better, and I need to know how to syndicate that to social. I need outbound callers to call people that we don't know that own those properties, to introduce what we can do to help them and see if they have context to sell inside the next 12 months. Then all of a sudden it becomes logical. Then you test that and voila, it begins to work. Then you say, well, why do I stop at one? As soon as I'm profitable, why don't I reinvest in a second person to do that? See where I'm going? All of a sudden, this accelerant is happening, and that 10-year goal is shrinking into 9. I can get it in 8. I can get it in 7. And if I really think like an Elon Musk, I can go bananas and borrow that money and hire a whole fleet of outbound callers. I can become a partner, as I did, with somebody in Belgium who's a great coder, and we make a better website that serves the seller better, makes the buyer's life easier. You see, I'm living this as I'm sharing it with you. And it's the first time ever where I realized this third point, is that there's no real reason success should take me longer. Now that I've cracked this code in my own being, that it's systems and people, and I know how the business works. It's right there in front of all of us, logically saying, hey, get more listings at a better price and sell them, right? That'll attract more listings. That'll attract buyers. Agents will revere the company. They'll join you, and they'll ask you, what's your secret to success? And you'll share it with them, and they'll get the listings that you wouldn't get because those are the people they know. I know I'm talking really fast here because what I'm trying to do is challenge your thinking. Because you get stuck. If you want to hear the sister episode to this, go back to the last episode and listen to when I talked about you as the main problem. That's how we think, okay? So the last point here, while you get stuck generating revenue, hire other people to push the growth because they don't know your personal limitations. Let me explain what this means. In the model that I teach our elite mastermind members at the highest level, most of them come to me already as top producers. They come as top producing agents. And they're most of the ones that are successful with me, and they've been with me a long time, they come to me already like I was, a little bit beaten up and saying, this top producer team nonsense isn't the business. It's just a sales machine, and I appreciate it. And if I'm smart enough to make as much profit and invest it in a solo 401k or invest it in other income generating assets like I guess real estate would be an example, or a dividend stock, whatever it is, and that someday I can retire because there's enough free cash flow, wonderful, great. But the thing that you've been working on the whole time, generating revenue in, is just a sales machine if it can't generate consistently and predictably without you in the field with a seller and buyer. Let that sink in. That's really important, right? So as you're being successful and you want to invest in investment properties or dividend producing stocks, whatever it might be, you want to understand that it would also behoove you to reinvest some of that money in other people who do these things way better than you are doing them, so that you free up some time. Okay? Because that's what's building it. So, for example, if you looked at my team, who is widely virtual across the country and even out of the country, we have a social media manager who's overseas. 2 of them, in fact. We have a closing coordinator who's all the way halfway across the country. We have a statistician and an information organizer who's down in Texas. I could go on and on and on. I have begun to invest in micro workers who are micro specialists. It's not like I have to go out anymore and hire the catch-all employee who's supposed to have 17 different traits, which was absurd to begin with. We now live in this unbelievable, resourceful world where you can go to something like Upwork.com and you can begin to hire people who will do things more consistently than you. See, a lot of top producers, as they evolve their business, will say, well, I'm not there yet. Oh, It's the kiss of death. It is the line that is the kiss of death. What, not where. If you are serious about building a real estate agent business, meaning a business that serves you, you're there right now. The minute you say that. And so anything that gets in the way of that is typically you saying, I'm not here or there. Yes, you are. The minute you're successful because you go after the median or above, or you hire a telemarketer, or you even hire a closing coordinator that allows you to sell more, you must take a piece of that and reinvest it in systems and workers who sit on those systems that leverage you and save you time so that you can grow. And when you hire somebody, they don't know your limitations about social. They bring you their expertise and say, you should do this, you should do that. Wow, that's a great idea, you say. They had no idea that you were limited in that. So those are the examples I give you. All right, let me go back and get a little passionate about this one here because it's exciting, right? How in the world would anybody with a straight face say to you how you can push your 10-year goals into 6 months? Well, it takes an Elon Musk who's done that in front of all of us in this modern era to challenge that. And it's ironic that I would have just finished something and say, you're the problem in your business. I'm the problem in mine. And he's not the problem in his because he's got that mindset of let's just go for it. And again, it's not like he's wildly risky. Yes, I think he's come close to losing Tesla or SpaceX. And I don't really know at PayPal when they first did that, how risky that was. But again, he was surrounded by partners and people that were smarter than him in certain areas. And those people are the ones you don't see that are expanding this. So it's possible if you'll do this. Go back to the last episode where we defined you as the biggest problem, but really understanding that starts with what you believe to be true. That's what's limiting us, right? And the second point is how can you set a 10-year goal if you don't even know how the business works? Well, go to freeagentgift.com and just print out the infographic. That's how it works in Michael Gerber's vision of the 3 things we must become, right? Next, once you know how the business works in general, there's no real reason success should take so long because it's logically in front of you. Just execute the darn plan, right? And not my plan. I mean, this is just the bone structure for how any business works. Study it. Maybe you're listening to this. You're not even in real estate. You're in insurance. You're in a small restaurant business. Just get up above the small restaurant business and watch how good ones exist. And really, imagine like a Subway or a McDonald's. One store at a time is how it works. And if you just sat there and observed, oh, I see how it works. They come in, they order up on the board. It's pretty tight. They have a little system. It's not rocket science, right? No business really is at its core. Well, you get stuck generating revenue, meaning you have to go sell. I get it. Start to reinvest by hiring other people to push the growth. So pushing you on social, pushing you in telemarketing, taking care of the closing coordination so you can get more through because they don't know your personal limitations. So they're just going to keep cranking out the work for you instead of overthinking it. That's a key point. All right, let me summarize it this way. While there are many gurus that will teach and preach that you should have a clear and written 10-year goal for your real estate business, very few will ever tell you that success attainment of those goals is predicated on your full understanding of how the business really works, full but simple, of how the business really works, and then getting out of your own way by getting the help of others who are managing systems for you so that the growth agenda is not only being pushed out to the 10-year goal, but it's being accelerated and accomplished in less time. All right, now remember this. You can take immediate action to get started in the right direction with a copy of our free strategic plan. It's waiting for you at freeagentgift.com. I've said it a lot today because the point of this podcast is to try to help you, if you will listen to me, get strategic. Stop being afraid to think bigger. It's fun. Okay? It's not so limiting. You don't have to set the thermostat in this business to be choking on not enough business. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. We also broadcast our live sales training calls. Okay, we'll let you see some of the actual work that goes on in this business if you just tune in on Facebook or YouTube every Friday at 1 o'clock EDT. Remember to turn on the page and channel notifications for the Realty Classroom, and you won't miss the reminders. We'd also appreciate it if you would comment on our posts so we know what you're thinking, and we can clarify some of the stuff for you. And I am just about to launch a very low-cost Q&A so that I can provoke you into some sort of a private conversation with me and my team so we can answer some simple basic questions so that you can begin to reinvest in some understanding of how the business works, okay? I know you need something beyond this, so we're going to offer it real soon, and I'll let you know about that coming up here. Thanks for listening, but remember, nobody's coming for you, so go get to work on your own real estate agent business, and I'll be here in the next episode to help you do just that. Thanks.